quick. I need you to think of the greatest movie trilogy that has ever graced the cinema screen. Got your answer? Now, if you said the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, then congratulations, you would be correct. Kung Fu Panda 4 is almost here, ladies and gentlemen. After a long 8 years since the third installment, I honestly can't say that I ever thought we'd see the day, considering the last one ended in a pretty conclusive note, but that's just 2020's Hollywood for you. I ain't complaining about this one though, because not only did this give me an excuse to rewatch the trilogy, but the Kung Fu Panda is starting to pick back up again. And what may be shocking to many is that the name that's been thrown around the most is Tai Lung. Now, if you didn't know, the Kung Fu Panda franchise prides itself off of 3 main components. 1. They unfortunately have to hold the Furious 5 at least once a movie. I'm sorry, it's just tradition at this point. 2. They have to make a timeless comedy that ages like fine wine. Like, seriously, if you haven't seen it recently, go check it out. It's hilarious. And 3, they absolutely have to create some of the most incredible villains to ever be seen in animation. And no one is as representative of this last point than Tai Lung. I'm personally a Kung Fu Panda 2 supremacist. It's literally impossible for me to go through that movie without tearing at least once. But Tai Lung is by far my favorite villain in this franchise. A beautifully tragic character that works phenomenally as an antagonist, both structurally and thematically, and one that if he was not included as a series opening villain, then I genuinely don't see this franchise reaching the peaks that it has so far. The story of Tai Lung is nothing short of pure misfortune, reflecting the dangers of letting one's passion evolve into unchecked obsession, and the critical role that mentors play in the process. A description that can also be used for one of my favorite movies of all time with Whiplash. Tai Lung was an orphan that showed a clear affinity towards the martial arts at a young age, effectively becoming a prodigy of sorts, a talent that would bring him ever so closer to his mentor and father figure of Shifu. Now, Shifu genuinely does have love for his child. He couldn't even go all out against his baby boy even if he wanted to. But Shifu also in a sense viewed Tai Lung as the martial artist he could never be, pushing this legendary goal of Dragon Warrior onto his found son after witnessing his early skills. Again, in part of wanting the best for his child, but also sort of wanting to live vicariously through said child. I mean, the only one even shown to rival Tai Lung's later obsession with the Dragon Scroll is Shifu himself. Tai Lung would go on to revel in the idea of becoming Dragon Warrior because, of course, he was a martial artist, he was told he had the potential for so much of his life, and this title was thought to come with great prestige. But I think the biggest factor behind this obsession that isn't so straightforward but is heavily implied is that achieving the status of Dragon Warrior would justify his worth as a son. Just picture it from Tai Lung's perspective for a bit. You're a lonely child who just so happened to stumble across a golden opportunity of being raised by the likes of some of the greatest kung fu minds in history. You have nothing and your father gives you everything. Clothes, food, structure, and power in the form of martial arts. And all he wants and pushes for since you were a young child is for you to be the Dragon Warrior. This is going to subconsciously tie your worth, tie your existence to this title, as you don't want every bit of your parents' time and efforts and energy spent raising you to be for nothing. And so not only do you hype yourself into believing you are destined for this path, but into believing that you need this accomplishment to justify to yourself that you're not a mistake. So on that fateful day when Tai Lung was rejected and Shifu didn't come to his defense, it wasn't just a squirrel he lost that day, but in his mind, a chance to give back to a man that gave him everything. Tai Lung serves as the perfect foil for Po because their mirrored upbringings result in dramatically different mindsets later on in life, playing into those yin-yang themes that reoccurred throughout this entire franchise. They are both orphans who stumbled into found fathers, fathers that, while loving, subconsciously boxed their sons into this idol image, with Shifu wanting Tai Lung to be the Dragon Warrior and Ping wanting Po to take over the noodle shop, which is a family legacy. These forced expectations ultimately limit them later in life as they find that their paths are not meant for that route anymore. But while Po learns to explore this new route meant for him, Tai Lung is obsessed with what can never be. Those ingrained character contrasts are used to explore the film's central themes of inner strength and the power of embracing one's uniqueness, highlighted by the secret Dragon Scroll that was said to contain a massive amount of power but was blank all along. And while Po gained power from this realization, Tai Lung was driven further into despair, and that is because while Tai Lung was physically stronger, he was mentally destroyed, a broken individual on the inside who couldn't mentally accept that he wasn't destined for this ancient title, as that title was his only sense of self-worth. Having physical power was the only source of reassurance he had at that point, operating like Homelander, funny enough. So finding out that the title did not come with his ancient external powers left him utterly vulnerable, as we openly see his reality falling apart just like that. There is another layer of fascination when it comes to the dynamic between Po and Tai Lung when you look at how Kung Fu Panda functions as a story. You see Having this big, clumsy, nerdy panda as the protagonist of a martial arts film was an intentional decision by the creators of this franchise, as they wanted Po to serve as the antithesis to the typical main character trope. In doing so, not only adding comedic moments, but further fueling those ingrained themes of inner strength. Now those themes flow stunningly well into the characterization of Tai Lung, as he physically does embody the main character archetype. He is the cool, built, very talented character that would typically serve as the protagonist of the story, given it was any other story, effectively flipping the stereotype on the audience, telling us that one is not a hero because he looks like one, but because he acts like one. Now, Tai Lung hasn't been in the spotlight at all since the original back in 2008, yet he is still so well championed by the community, so of course, his comeback in Kung Fu Panda 4 trailer was obviously met with great reception, even though he's seemingly getting owed. But give me a second verse. I think while the former student turns evil story isn't anything revolutionary, Tai Lung is done in such an incredible manner that it's hard to not at least admire certain parts of his character. Like that pure intimidation he was able to exude from the growls to the snow leopard based design makes him feel like a proper threat, especially with the only turtle we knew that could take him down being long gone at this point. I think what adds to this intimidation factor is the fact that bro is seemingly the underdog when it comes to most of his fights in the film, like on some Garo type stuff for the One Punch Man fans out there, an aspect that is unique to him, seeing as though the other antagonists do use some more power through external means. Shen had his army in tech and Kai had his Jade soldiers. Tai Lung, on the other hand, had his first action scene being him escaping a seemingly inescapable prison with numerous guards and weapons aimed against him. He then followed that up by soloing one of the greatest kung fu groups alive with the Furious 5. I even admire the fact that the creators subtly allude to the idea that the final battle wasn't so straightforward, as Po did not necessarily win, it's just that Tai Lung lost. If that makes any sense. Which really helps establish that he wasn't just a stepping stone to more powerful villains, but was a prominent force in itself that lost because he wasn't right mentally. Like, you see that psychological toll it took from his fight with Shifu. You see how distraught he was when he saw that the scroll was empty, as in his mind, it was basically saying that this entire rampage, imprisonment, and revenge over the last 20 years were all practically for nothing. Take that guy on the verge of a mental collapse and tell him to fight against a guy who not only found his inner strength, but has proven to be a tank as far as durability goes? Yeah, of course he was going to lose his fight. He doesn't look any weaker when you take his condition into consideration. Tai Lung was the perfect, hard-hitting opening antagonist that helped set the incredible baseline for what thematic brilliance could be drawn from this franchise. And his role as a foil is not only so integral, but so exceptionally well done, that replacing his presence would only be doing a service to this original masterpiece. Now, Kung Fu Panda 4 is around the corner, and they have been given the golden opportunity to bring back this character and set him up for something that would bring this franchise full circle before shifting to a new main character, and that's a redemption arc. People online have already been speculating the golden aura that surrounds Tai Lung as he seemingly leaves the spirit realm is similar to the chi aura that is seen by those in Kung Fu Panda 3, potentially symbolizing that Tai Lung gains some sort of enlightenment in the spirit realm, maybe by working with Oogway. This could easily lead him to playing a Zuko type role in Kung Fu Panda 4, trying to atone for his sins while reflecting on his new path in life. His presence will also fill a giant hole in the cast currently that comes from the apparent lack of inclusion of the Fierce 5. We can get some cool moments with Shifu. We could see that duo of Shifu's greatest students in action, and if everything goes well, maybe we get a spin-off of some sort following more of his path to redemption. I really hope that Tai Lung's inclusion serves to expand greatly on his fan favorite original, and not just a way to artificially inflate another villain. Oh boy, that's exactly what's gonna happen, isn't it?